In this lecture, we will explain the logic behind the wisdom of the zodiac, why events in the world are subject to the positions of celestial bodies in the zodiac. When we examine the Talmud and the Book of Zohar, we discover that the sages believed there is a connection between the celestial bodies and events in the world. In recent generations, astrologers have invented a new concept, modern astrology, and they claim that planets have powers and energies that influence humans, and therefore, each person's character and future events are determined based on their birth time. Well, they speak without any sense, and it's completely absurd to attribute powers and energies to them, especially since it is now known that planets are made up of dust, metals, and gases. So, is there anyone who can explain to me how they manage to influence human behavior on Earth and decide on which day people get married or who will win the lottery? And also, why would they be responsible for global events and decide the day a war will break out? I dedicated a separate lecture where I extensively explained the tricks and manipulations that astrologers use to deceive you. And I proved to you that this astrology is not kosher. Here I will reveal to you the true astrology based on the sages and extensively explained in the teachings of Hasidism, and I have named it Epistronomy. If we observe the Jewish holidays, we will discover that all the dates are based on the sun and the moon. The determination of the first day of the month, that is, Rosh Chodesh, depends on the moment of the new moon, which is the moment when the sun and the moon meet in the sky each month. Then, on the 15th day, the holidays of Sukkot and Passover will occur. To make it easier for you, I placed the sun and the moon at equal distances from the earth in this animation, even though the sun is 400 times farther away than the moon. Here you see the moment when the moon meets the sun. This is called the new moon. From the perspective of the earth, the sun completes a full rotation in the sky in 1 year, but the moon completes it in less than a month. Therefore, once every month, the moon meets the sun in the sky. And then the beginning of the month is determined. The question that arises is, wouldn't it be more logical to determine the month and the holidays according to the conditions in the spiritual world, when the spiritual revelation in the world continues and makes the day holy? The answer is that we live in a material world, and we cannot see what happens in the spiritual worlds. Therefore, God created the physical sun and moon, which represent to us what is happening above. In other words, through them, I know what is happening in the higher worlds. The pattern of the sun and moon's movement parallels the pattern of spiritual occurrences. Therefore, when I see the new moon occurring, when the sun and the moon meet and unite together, and from this day the moon's light grows day by day, it teaches me that also above in the spiritual worlds, there is a spiritual new moon, a unification between spiritual spheres, and a new cycle of spiritual light begins to flow into the world. And since on the 15th day of the month, the moon always reaches its peak, being full and shining maximally, it teaches us that on this day, the spiritual light also reveals itself in the world maximally, and therefore the holiday is established on this day. This matter is not limited to the sun and the moon, but also to all the planets. This means that through them, according to a celestial code, I know what is happening in the spiritual worlds, and once this spiritual matter is drawn down to the physical world, it will also be possible to foresee physical events in the world. And all this because the orbits of the planets are unchangeable. Man, with his free will, is capable of altering the location of materials on Earth and changing their form, and thus he might disrupt the spiritual information embedded in them during the 6 days of creation. But no one will ever be able to change the orbit of the sun or the moon. That is to say, the movement of the planets remains as it was created during the 6 days of creation, and therefore observing them can teach us much about what is happening in the spiritual worlds. According to this, hypothetically, if one day humans manage to change the moon's orbit, then we will no longer be able to sanctify the month, because the moon will no longer be able to represent what happens in the spiritual realms. Therefore, it is also understood that the celestial bodies of the planets are not directly responsible for wars or events in the world. Rather, when planets meet in the sky or a specific planet reaches a certain point in the zodiac, it indicates that at that moment, a type of spiritual influence is descending into the world. According to this type of influence, I can expect a physical event characterized by this specific spiritual abundance. And it really doesn't matter what material the planets are made of and what their size is, because that's not the point here. According to this, it's not enough to look at the sky to see where the planets are, but spiritual knowledge is also required, meaning understanding the heavenly code to deduce what might happen in the world. According to this Torah explanation, all the wisdom of the zodiac takes on a completely different form with a logical explanation. Therefore, our sages said that this wisdom specifically belongs to the people of Israel, and this refers not only to astronomical calculations but mainly to the wonderful wisdom that is the true wisdom of the zodiac, through which we know what is happening in the higher worlds and thus the likelihood of occurrences in the world. And this is indeed a wonderful wisdom that is not found among the nations of the world. The conclusion is that there are no coincidences.